Good day, everyone. All of us have family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, neighbors who could use a more thorough explanation of why they should wear masks, why the coronavirus is deadly, how transmission works, and just a general common sense regarding this pandemic. I've tried my best to explain to people how this works, why they need to wear masks and how they are effective, and why this whole situation is political. I have partnered with my mother, Rhonda Rainstorm, to bring to you this hopefully simple yet efficient explanation about how we really need to rely on the science of this pandemic, and that it is this understanding of a scientific basis of coronavirus that will hopefully convince more and more people to follow proper protocol and to help abate this virus and its spread. We live in difficult times regarding the sincerity of true information. We live in an age of fake news and media outlets, a lack of trust of government, a lack of trust of science, and a conflicted world of individuals who trust in the wrong places and don't trust where they should. There's so much information, and there's so much misinformation. It's difficult to make sense, but one thing we have to all remember is that the pandemic has become political. It should never have, but it is, especially here in the United States of America, where everything is political. Misinformation seems to be far more prevalent than information, and the only defense we have against this is real knowledge. To begin, the sociology of it all. The chemistry and the biology, which are the sciences, mix with the politics of the area to create a mechanism that churns out this information and misinformation. Yet the science behind the coronavirus, the science behind viruses in general, and the science behind the spread of infectious diseases, viruses, and other lethal and harmful bacteria, fungi, etc., all comes down to the mixture of these three entities. To begin, the chemistry. Merriam-Webster defines matter as material substance that occupies space, has mass, and is composed predominantly of atoms consisting of protons, neutrons, and electrons that constitutes the observable universe and that is interconvertible with energy. Here we have examples of matter. Matter naturally appears in three observable states: a solid, a liquid, and a gas. For our purposes, we shall focus primarily on the liquid and gas phases. However, it should be noted that solids can appear quite abundantly inside of liquids and gases if the solids are small enough. Specifically concerning gases, the following are true. Gas has no fixed shape or volume. There is a great deal of empty space between the molecules of a gas. Gases possess a great deal of kinetic energy. Gases quite regularly move quickly and collide with one another. And most importantly, for the sake of this corona demonstration, gases diffuse or spread out until they are evenly distributed within their container, however large and open that container may be. Now on to biology. According to the Library of Congress, our bodies are nearly 70% water. As a result, the air in our lungs is nearly saturated with water vapor. The moisture we exhale comes directly from our lungs. We exhale far more water vapor than we inhale. Although not normally visible with the naked eye, the water vapor that is released during the exhalation of our breath can sometimes be visible when tainted with toxins, such as cigarette smoke, or when atmospheric conditions, such as on a wintry day, allow for the visibility of this exhaled water vapor. Further biological research shows that there are numerous ways for the human body to become infected. Some of the most common below. Bacteria. According to Merriam-Webster, bacteria are single-celled organisms that produce their own energy and reproduce on their own. Bacterial infections are very common for human beings and are quite frequently treated with antibacterial medication when a specific bacteria can be identified and a treatment can be provided. Bacteria, though dangerous, are quite frequently not as dangerous as viruses. According to Merriam-Webster, viruses are not living organisms. They are only active within host cells, whose organelles they need to carry out their life functions. As visible below, the virus must attach itself to a living cell and release its viral infectious agent inside the cells of a host and hijack these cells for its own use. As such, because a virus is not a living organism on its own, viruses are far more difficult to destroy, both inside the host and out. A virus, when outside of a host, quite frequently is protected by protein shells and other protections which allow it to survive cold conditions, hot conditions, and conditions inhospitable to organic life. Inside of a host, a virus can be exceedingly difficult to kill, as many attempts to do so might harm the host itself. As with any infection, one of the main areas of concern is transmission. For the coronavirus, it has been determined that this virus is spread through airborne transmission, through the exposure of virus-containing respiratory droplets. As is visible in the bottom right photo, coronavirus can hijack a ride on the water droplets expelled through a host's exhalation and left hanging in the air. They can remain suspended there for long periods of time. As for coronavirus, it has been known to still linger in the air 1 to 2 days after a host has exited the building or area. And these water droplets can spread great distances, usually greater than 6 feet. It is possible that COVID-19 may spread through the droplets and airborne particles that are formed when a person who has COVID-19 coughs, sneezes, or even sings, talks, or breathes. Smaller droplets and particles, formed when small droplets dry very quickly in the airstream, can remain. Wearing a face covering reduces the chance of infection by 70%. As is notable in the picture above, these water droplets and the viruses they contain are very small, oftentimes less than 5 microns. As a point of reference, the chart shows a comparison between the size of the water droplets and the girth of a human hair. On to the political. I use here the example of South Carolina that my mother chose, because this is the state where we reside. However, political influence can be witnessed in nearly every state of the United States. South Carolina has been historically a Republican state. Since 2003, South Carolina has been a Republic trifecta, meaning the Republican Party controls all three branches of state government. The 21st century Republican Party is associated with laissez-faire capitalism, which promotes minimal government interference. Minimal government interference can mean that individuals see wearing a mask as a personal choice, even if that mask is for the prevention of the spread of a deadly virus. The politics of the United States quite frequently interfere with scientific breakthroughs, discoveries, and interventions. While I do not forward a political agenda here, it is notable that the positionality chosen by the two main parties in the United States differs greatly. Mask wearing is political. While it shouldn't be, the use of mask wearing across the country and throughout the various states has been shown to have a deep correlation with the political leaning of that state and that state's leadership. According to the University of Washington News, politics, above COVID-19 cases or deaths, determines whether states enact mask mandates. According to the Encyclopedia of American Politics, all 24 states with Democratic governors have issued statewide mask mandates, both indoor and outdoor public spaces, while 10 of the 26 Republican-controlled states require face coverings. Again, to reiterate, neither the number of cases nor the number of deaths has had more of an impact on the requirement of mask mandates or stay-at-home orders, more so than the political affiliation and control of a state. All states with Democratic governors have statewide mask mandates. According to the Washington Post, Republican states are typically managing mask mandates at the local governmental level, if they have any restrictions at all. Travel restrictions, likewise, are associated. The chemistry, the biology, and the politics all come together to show us a clearer picture of risk assessment. Online risk assessments rate many working conditions as high risk. Online risk assessments include the following, such as CDC and WebMD. The chart here shows the COVID-19 risk index with low to high rankings. Low activities include walking alone outside or staying home. Low medium include non-contact, low number sports such as tennis. Medium activities include such risks as going to the doctor, which might have proper PPE, but an increased number of individuals and increased physical contact. Medium-high activities would include going to the gym or going to a barbershop, where various people come and go in close proximity to one another. High risks include any instance where individuals congregate together indoors or are within close proximity to one another, or areas where masks are not worn or not worn properly, such as eating at bars and nightclubs, playing contact sports, or attending church service indoors. Risk factors include people in an enclosed space, inconsistent and ineffective mask wearing, poor ventilation, multiple hours together, and underlying health conditions. It is notable that these risk factors pile one on top of another until the threat of infection, when multiple factors are aligned, becomes increasingly more likely. In an attempt to set aside the politicization of the situation, we are left with the science of the chemistry and the biology to construct a reality of our situation. We are exhaling water vapor, and that water vapor does fill its container by definition of a gas. Whether we are in an office, a classroom, a gym, a movie theater, or someone's house, if a water droplet happens to be infected, that water droplet will fill the container of this enclosed space. Putting on a mask for a part of the day, or wearing a mask ineffectively, for example, if it does not cover both your mouth and nose, is ineffective. Staying in the same area with the same mask on, around the same people for long periods of time, will also cause any sort of best practices to no longer be effective. Even when properly worn for the correct duration of time, for the minimum duration of time, mask wearing is still only about 70% effective. It's also notable that masks protect others more so than the wearer. So for only one person to be wearing a mask in a situation nullifies the protection that person receives from the mask. When we have visitors who come into our spaces, our offices, our homes, etc., and they spend any time at all maskless or ineffectively wearing masks, risks increase. Here we see some examples of individuals and some situations which should drive home the requirement to properly wear PPE and to properly follow social distance guidelines. Individuals who die corona-related deaths quite often die alone because they are not able to have the companionship of friends and family around them due to risk of infection. Best possible outcome for someone dying of corona is to have the affectionate care and embrace of a fully protected nurse or doctor. Long has the politicization of this pandemic affected individuals at a societal level. Individual choice regarding mask wearing, social distancing, or quarantine has long been argued to be a personal choice rather than something to be dictated by a state apparatus. However, we are not living in an individualized scientific world where personal choice affects only the one making it. This pandemic has been exacerbated by a collection of individuals who have chosen for the greater society how this situation will unfold. It is important to note that if anyone in an area is breathing out infected water droplets, there is a significant danger in that area for hours and in certain situations, days to come. A virus is not a living thing until it finds a host. So if we deny the virus a host, it will go away, much as viral outbreaks in the past have done. We needlessly put ourselves and our loved ones at risk of this deadly pandemic when we make choices such as not wearing a mask, not following social distance, or not following proper protocols for pandemic, or following the protocols mandated by our government when our government has allowed the politics to overrule the science and the chemistry. It's notable that corona has an R0 of 2.5, which means that for every person infected, it is likely that 2 to 3 more will be infected from that new host. We are all victims of a deadly pandemic which has become a political war. Our safety is being compromised because for many of us we live in economic first states, and our nation in general takes an economic first approach to many of its domestic policies. Other reasons include that because many believe it's not real, that the rhetoric of fake news has reached a new heightened level where pandemic-related news and pandemic-related deaths have been pure fabrication. And finally, because others are simply tired of dealing with it. Our society in general is one that does not have a high level of patience. And we see that within the first few weeks of quarantine, so many individuals, so many communities were unwilling to continue as such. They would, quote, rather die than to have their, quote, freedoms infringed upon. For anyone who is already aware of the definition of matter, of the phases of matter, of the properties of gases, and how viruses work, live, and spread, Please do not be insulted or upset by this video. It is not the intention of its creators to insult anyone's intelligence or make anyone uncomfortable. The intention is to have this information presented from trustworthy sources so that we can combat ignorance with knowledge. We all should take available precautions to protect ourselves, our family, our friends, co-workers, and in effect, the rest of humanity. We should all avoid enclosed spaces whenever possible, or masks anytime we are sharing air with an enclosed space of any kind, and only engage in activities which are critically necessary. When we do not follow these practices, we are putting people at risk, not just ourselves, but everyone with whom we interact. We often do this unnecessarily for our own comfort and convenience. Trust the chemistry, trust the biology. People are dying not because of these, but because of the politics. It's all about the science. We live in an age that defines itself by being the age of science. We must trust in it once again, and not allow for rhetoric, fear, or politics to overrule our basic judgments, our basic understanding of science, and the best practices that we all should follow in order to beat this pandemic and allow for our lives to return to the type of normalcy we can expect post-pandemic. Thank you. Good day.